what are your thoughts on someone who's maybe wants to be a part-time entrepreneur? They like their job, they enjoy what they do, but they're not earning what they need to earn, and they need to find a way to add more income to their life.
I would say if you're thinking about being a part-time entrepreneur, you better figure out what you want out of it, or you're going to fail. Because you're doing 40, 45 hours a week at your job. You got a family, you have your health, you have all these things you're taking care of, and you're going to start a side hustle, which, hey, I'm all in favor for. I coach and mentor a lot of people that start in our business part-time, but you better know what it's for. So you mentioned it. If your goal is be an entrepreneur on the side and start a business and make $3-4 grand a month for 10 years, right? To put whatever that is, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 in cash to retire early, then you do that. But if you're running a part-time business, you really got to figure out why you're doing it, because there's going to be days where you get overwhelmed and you wonder why you started it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Life by Design with Steve Holbrook. I'm really excited about today's topic, and I have here in studio, live in person, in the flesh, the one and only, the very own, Mr. Colton Burr.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Fired up.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
I think this is going to be a good podcast. This is going to be unreal. We got a little bit, not quite controversial topics, but I think hot topics to touch on today. And I'm really excited to get into it.
Yeah, I'm fired up. And I think depending on what side of the camp people are on, they tend to get pretty worked up about how everybody should be on their side of the needle.
Very true.
Right? Kind of like politics.
Yeah.
Right side, left side.
Yeah.
Today we are talking about being an employee versus an entrepreneur and which one's the best fit.
Yeah. So right off the hop, Steve, what do you think are the fundamental differences when it comes to being an employee and being an entrepreneur? Because there's fundamental differences, but there's also, I would say, unique benefits to each, depending on the person and who they are, where they're at.
Yeah, there's definitely benefits to both, and we're gonna address those. And even just before I answer that question, I think the comment I want to make is that, when I first got into business, a lot of the employee mindset around me were trying to pull me back into being an employee. So they say things like, you shouldn't explore entrepreneurship and it's too risky and it's, people fail all the time, and they were trying to draw me back into being an employee. Mm-hmm. And then what I see too is a lot of entrepreneurs, especially on social media, they spend all their time bashing employees. Like, you can't be successful unless you're an entrepreneur, and everybody should be an entrepreneur. And I just think that both of those are total BS.
Yeah. I very much dislike when someone glamorizes being an entrepreneur and getting into business.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
100%. There's benefits to both. And I just want to say, if you're one of those people that bash employees, stop doing it. If you're one of those people that bash entrepreneurs and you're unsupportive of your friend's business, and somebody calls and say, hey, I just started a new business, and you're not willing to support them, shame on you as well.
I'd agree.
Awesome.
I'd agree.
So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with, let's start with the benefits of being an employee.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, because there are some.
So what would you say are the top 2, top 3 benefits to being an employee?
I'd say the first thing off the top of my head is stability and predictability. One of the core human needs is the need for certainty. And this really ties into predictability and stability. Having a job can be stable, right? You're going to get paid every 2 weeks. There's benefits, right? You know what to expect. There's not a lot of surprises. Yeah, within the job itself, there's moving parts, but it's very stable typically, and it's very predictable. And I think that reduces a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress for people that really can't handle the unpredictability of not being an employee. What do you think?
I would agree. There's definitely a benefit to being able to know, hey, I am going to get $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 every couple of weeks, and you can plan your life around it. You can budget really well. I think for people that have a hard time or maybe not the capacity to handle as much uncertainty, it's a really good benefit to be like, hey, I know exactly how much I'm going to get.
Yeah. I think there's some people that just say, you know what, I'll take stability and predictability over everything. Mm-hmm. If you're watching this or you know somebody that they value the most predictability and stability, that's the number one thing that they value just overall in their life, then getting a good job that has good benefits with a decent salary, as long as it's enough, to pay your bills and you have enough left over to save for retirement, there's nothing wrong with that. And you should really lean into that.
And some people just love what they do, to be honest. You get people who get into careers like my mother's a firefighter.
Yeah, your mom's a great example. Yeah.
She would never do anything else.
Your mom's a badass.
She is. She was
badass.
One of the first firefighters in the department in Calgary.
Yeah. Female captain too, right?
Yeah, 20 years now.
She's amazing. I can't imagine your mom doing anything else. Example of predictability, stability, great pension, great benefits, and it works with her lifestyle.
100%. So what would you say is one of the other benefits to being an employee?
I think another benefit of being an employee is that when you're an employee, you can really specialize in one area, right? So you get hired to do a job, right? A technical job, maybe you're an engineer. So every day you're doing the same job over and over again, and you get really good at it. You can take courses for it, become specialized in one area. Where entrepreneurship, you have to wear many hats. Mm-hmm. As an entrepreneur, you can't just focus on one thing being an entrepreneur. I mean, you start a business and you're doing the marketing, the payroll, the accounting, the advertising, the hiring, the firing, the legal. You're involved in the legal side of it. So you're doing it all. But when you're an employee, you can really just dive in and specialize in one area and really develop that one skill or two skills that you're in charge for, and really kind of, just focus on getting good at that.
Becoming a master of your craft, like a true master of what you do. I think it's awesome.
I think also too, within a lot of jobs, a lot of employment opportunities, there's opportunities for people to, advance their skill and knowledge in a certain area. So like, let's say I'm an employee and I'm in a department, like your mom, for example. We've talked about her for a second. When you start and you're in one department and you got to get good at these three things, you get really good at it, you master it. And then maybe there's an opportunity to kind of change departments and expand your knowledge and skills. And probably your employer pays for that. And you get to learn another skill and really lean into that. So there's a lot of structure with skill and development, and you can focus on one area at a time.
I'd say it is important though too, for anyone who's in that category, still be looking for something that has upward mobility, something where you can still progress to get better and challenge yourself. Because Tony Robbins talks about all the time, it's progress equals happiness. So if you get into a job where you're not progressing anymore, I do think it will make people frustrated and unhappy with what they're doing, even if it's something that they enjoy.
Yeah. I'd say another benefit of being an employee is there's a lot of built-in work-life balance with being an employee, especially compared to early entrepreneurship. Like early entrepreneurship, it's a grind, and you have to give up a little bit of work-life balance to begin with. So a lot of employees, they value that from their jobs. Let me give an example. At your job, it's typically very structured. So your hours that you're off, and when you leave your job, you can be 100% focused on your family. A lot of employees get paid vacation time, right? So like, okay, I know I get 5 weeks off a year. We're going to go to Europe this week, Disneyland this week. It's very structured. The work-life balance can be, very structured, and it's built in, which can be, which is nice for a lot of busy families.
I have a few friends who they love putting in their 8 hours and then never thinking about work again. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what gets you going, right? For me, I can't work that way. I have a hard time shutting things off, but some people, they just want to go do their work for 8 hours and then go home.
That's why you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think the last benefit, there's it's not the last benefit, but the last one that I want to talk about here today is being an employee. There's, reduced risk and responsibility. When you're an employee, you show up to your job, and when you leave your job, you don't have to worry about that job. The business owner is the one that has to worry about keeping the lights on and making sure the contracts are filled and making sure payroll is done.
Somebody's showing up sick and then you have to go in on the day you're supposed to take off.
Right. You show up as an employee, you do your job at the best way you can. And when you leave, you do your best to kind of leave everything at work, because at the end of the day, it's not your responsibility. You could walk away from your job, get a new job tomorrow, and your life's going to be okay. The business owner is all in, right? The business owner should be all in, committed. Yeah, should be.
All right, now let's talk about the flip side to that. How about entrepreneurship? Getting into business. I think it's been something that's been very glamorized and very made trendy. Probably the last 3-4 years is, hey, go and work for yourself, go get into business. But let's talk about some real key benefits, and then maybe we'll talk about some downside or drawbacks to it too.
Yeah. Let's talk about the benefits of entrepreneurship. So there's a few that I want to talk about. First thing I want to talk about is innovation and creativity. As an entrepreneur, you have the ability within your business to innovate and be creative. Me, for example, I'm always thinking about ways to improve systems and structures. And I'm always thinking of creative ways to scale and to grow. And there's a lot more creativity opportunities as a business owner, entrepreneur, than there would be in your job. And as an employee, you don't really get paid to be creative unless that's your job, right? You get paid to do your job. It's the business owner and the entrepreneur's job to think creatively and on expansion. But I love that part about entrepreneurship. My creative juices just flow. And I think that keeps me alive.
I think it does. It also stresses your wife out sometimes.
It does.
It's, if you know Steve is a guy with his head in the clouds all the time, just like running with ideas and let's do this, let's try this. And then his wife, Melissa, is like, hey, whoa. Like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to execute?
But there's satisfaction in creativity, and I can make meaningful impact.
100%.
Meaningful impact through creativity. And that's to me, that's how you know I'm meant to be an entrepreneur, because that fires me up. I'm excited about it.
That's sick. Okay. And what about one of the biggest things for me when I started, for those of you that don't know, I used to be an electrician back in the day, and then I got started here. And something that really stuck out to me was I just wanted more control. Like I wanted to be able to take a day off if I wanted. I wanted to be able to say, well, I'm doing this today, I'm not doing that. And don't get me wrong, you can't just start working for yourself and then do whatever you want with your calendar, go wherever you want. Like there's a time in your business, especially in the beginning, where you have to treat yourself like an employee. But what about the control that being an entrepreneur starts to provide you?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You get to control your destiny. You are in control of your destiny. As an employee, you are not in control of your destiny at all. Entrepreneurship, you control your destiny, right? And yeah, I guess you got to bet on yourself, and that's why you want to be in a good model around good people with good mentorship. Mm-hmm. But the ability to design your life on purpose and be in control is very appealing to a lot of people.
How important do you think mentorship is? Because that's something I think very underrated in entrepreneurship.
I think having a mentor in business is important. I think that the role of a mentor is somebody who's walked down the path that you're going down. Mm-hmm. And they've stepped on the landmines, they've made the mistakes, they can lead and guide you. If you are an entrepreneur, you should 100% have a mentor, and that mentor should have experience in the journey that you're about to take. And they can take years off your business for you. 100%. You don't have to figure it all out on your own.
But maybe not a 22-year-old guru who's selling you a mentorship course for $500 a month.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, I only take mentorship from people that are doing it on the journey or have done it. So the next benefit of being an entrepreneur is the unlimited income potential. There's a way higher earning potential being an entrepreneur than being an employee. So if making big money or, setting big goals or living a large lifestyle or traveling the world, or, you have some really big goals that require some big earnings, entrepreneurship is probably the path that's going to get you there.
Yeah. It's very difficult to get to where you want to go in that regard just by trying to save 10 or 20% of your employment income, I would say.
It also, if you think about entrepreneurship, it also offers business owners the opportunity to build passive income.
Yeah.
Because you work hard, but I can speak about our business. We have a large passive income component already, and we're still relatively young. Entrepreneurship, you work really, really hard. And if you're in the right business and the right model, like our model, you can build a massive passive income so that later on in life, when you want to travel and you want to spend more time with your kids and you want to maybe give back in charitable giving, you're still earning money.
And maybe pause for a second on us talking about the different benefits of each, but what do you think about the idea of needing passive income these days to really get to where you want to go in life? Like even just basic retirement for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that I don't know that everybody needs it, but it depends what your goals are. Right? I think most people could use it, right? I think everybody would benefit from it.
Okay. So obviously as an entrepreneur, you're not clocking in, clocking out, doing the same thing every day. There's a lot of variety to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Would you say that's a benefit or a disadvantage?
Well, it depends if you value flexibility and variety, right? Being an entrepreneur provides flexibility. I mean, in the beginning, you do have to grind, you do have to work, you can't be taking time off, but there's flexibility. You know, for me, having a chronic illness, doing my doctor's appointments during the day, I have a son who's sick. When he's in and out of the hospital, I can be there for him. You don't have the same flexibility at a job as you do being an entrepreneur. So definitely, having that flexibility and you mentioned variety, where every day is a bit different. Not every day is the same. You're not going to show up to a cubicle and sit in an office and do the same thing every day like an employee would. There is that variety, and then there's the flexibility too.
And how do you think a job would have gone for you the year that you got sick? Were you in the hospital like over 200 days in the year?
In 2009, I had my rectum, my colon, taken out, and I was in the hospital for, most of the year, in and out. Wouldn't have had a job anymore. They would have laid me off. It took me years to recover, in and out of the hospital 2-3 times a week for 4, 5, 6 years after that, with my wounds and not closing and a bunch of complications. I became unemployable right before I got sick. And since I've been sick, I've been unemployable in terms of being able to be structured enough to have a job.
And how did you being an entrepreneur show up for you when those things happened? Yeah,
well, that's a great question. I had a little business that was paying me passive income while I was sick. So it showed up every day in my bank account, earnings that I had set up passively prior to me getting sick. It saved my life. Being an entrepreneur in 2009 is the reason that I'm still here, because I had a business. It's the reason that I'm still here breathing today, is because I chose entrepreneurship. So it saved my life. Right.
And now, was there work required before that point hit though?
Of course.
Yeah.
Grind.
There's this old saying of build your boat before the storm comes, or how big is your boat when the storm comes? And how much were you working on building that boat before that storm came?
Like crazy. I was like that little duck just floating on the river, but the feet underneath were paddling super quick. I knew I had a chronic illness, so I knew my time was coming where I was going to get sick. It was just a matter of time. So I had the blessing of knowing I was going to get sick. So I worked my ass off. Yeah.
That's huge, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Done a lot of good for a lot of people.
I'm glad I'm here too, brother. The last thing I want to talk about with entrepreneurship, which to me is the most important part of being an entrepreneur personally, is the legacy and the impact. When you build a business, when you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business, you're building a legacy and you're creating an impact on not just on yourself, but on other people, whether it's the communities, your kids, obviously your extended family, and that legacy will live on beyond you and your years. I'll give you some examples of some entrepreneurs. I mean, these are obviously big name entrepreneurs, but you think of someone like, Steve Jobs, who founded Apple. I mean, unfortunately, he passed away at a relatively young age. And regardless of what your opinions are on Steve Jobs, I know he was a bit of a ruthless leader, but man, the impact that this guy had on the world, he changed the world, right? Guys like Jeff Bezos, right? Who started Amazon. This guy is going to impact the world. I mean, obviously these are big name people, Elon Musk, people that have made a big impact, but within our own communities, there's people that are building legacies. That when they passed away, they've funded churches, they've community drives, they've women's shelters. And I find that being an entrepreneur gives you the most ability to leave that legacy and make the biggest impact.
Something that's not talked about enough when it comes to entrepreneurship and making a large income. So we talked about if you want to go and scale your income to levels that are, most employees don't earn, is what you get to do with that money afterwards. Money is just a tool. It's going to enhance who you are. If you're a bad person, you find a way to make a lot of money, and people do that, they're going to do a lot of bad. They're going to do a lot of evil things in the world. But I think if you can get a good person and maybe give them an opportunity or a vehicle to earn some really good income, the good that they can do in the community would be enormous.
That was great, brother.
Yeah. So we've talked about some of the benefits. Now, why would you pick one over the other? If I'm an individual and maybe I just finished up a career that I've done for 5 or 10 years and I don't love it anymore, and I want to either look at going into another job or maybe starting a business for myself, why would you pick one over the other?
I think it would depend on your strengths, your goals, your preferences. I think it would depend on what you value the most, right? When you close your eyes at night, if you imagine this legacy of you passing away and your great-great-grandchildren, not just knowing your name, but knowing how you impacted the family and what you did for them, and the idea of that inspiring them to do something bigger with their life, and the impact that you could have the next 100, 200 years. I mean, man, you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to find your vehicle. You have to find that passion and start that business. But if your priority is just more year to year, month to month, week to week, and you don't really, care about the legacy that you leave behind, and you just want to maximize maybe time outside of the job, and you don't want to tie your identity to your work and what you do and the impact that you're going to leave on the, in terms of the employment side, then probably being an employee is a better fit.
And what are your thoughts on someone who's maybe wants to be a part-time entrepreneur? They like their job, they enjoy what they do, but they're not earning what they need to earn, and they need to find a way to add more income to their life.
I would say if you're thinking about being a part-time entrepreneur, you better figure out what you want out of it, or you're going to fail. Because you're doing 40, 45 hours a week at your job. You got a family, you have your health, you have all these things you're taking care of, and you're going to start a side hustle, which, hey, I'm all in favor for. I coach and mentor a lot of people that start in our business part-time. But you better know what it's for. So you mentioned it. If your goal is be an entrepreneur on the side and start a business and make $3-4 grand a month for 10 years, right? To put whatever that is, $300,000-$500,000 in cash to retire early, then you do that, right? If you're going to give that $1,000 a month that you're making to your dad so that he can live in retirement, then you do that and you stay inspired. But if you're running a part-time business, you really got to figure out why you're doing it, because there's going to be days where you get overwhelmed and you wonder why you started it. And the other thing with that is, what is the vision for that business? Like, would you come full-time? If you could replace your full-time income, would you consider making this a full-time? I think a lot of people who get into business part-time should have the vision ultimately of it being your goose that's going to lay all the golden eggs. Yeah.
I think starting something part-time and then realizing it can become more is a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, I was an electrician and I come from the trades. I love doing it. I just started to realize for myself, it wasn't going to provide everything that I wanted. So I started looking for other avenues, and this was the last thing I thought I'd ever be doing, to be honest. But checked it out, did a part-time for 8 months. My income was starting to match what I was as an electrician, and it just made sense for me to go full-time.
To that point though, I remember training you because I was the one that trained you. And I think that when your business took off, so you're an electrician, you're doing this part-time, your business took off when you adjusted your story to, in 6 months, I'm going to be full-time. I'm running this business. I'm part-time for now. This will be my full-time gig. And as soon as you start to sell that vision, more people wanted to join you, more people wanted to buy. I
call it your transition story.
Yeah.
It's the time when you finally decide, hey, I'm transitioning to this and I'm looking to get my name out there some more.
I agree. Yeah.
But even to that point, you don't have to do something like myself where you go into a completely different industry. You could do something, employees, there's a really good opportunity to be an entrepreneur where you can find ways to progress and perform at your employment job, like what you do currently.
I think that's a great point. For example, if you're ambitious and you have a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit, but you're not ready to take that leap or start a business, what you could do is go to your boss and say, listen, you're paying me $65,000 a year. What would it take for me to get to $90,000 a year on commission or bonuses? What kind of value would you need me to provide in terms of maybe you're going to acquire some clients? And so maybe within your role, there's a base, but you opt for the option to have a little bit of that, that entrepreneurial spirit where the harder you work, the more you are going to make.
100%. Because like we talked about earlier, being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. There are some people where if you did this and you had to deal with some of the stresses and the capacity it takes, it would knock you out.
Yeah.
So stay at the job you're at. But what I say a lot of the times is if where you are right now is not going to help you accomplish all the goals, the dreams, the things that you desire. If you have a desire for more, you have to find a way to go and get it. Whether it's in your own job and then adding a commission component, adding performance bonuses, because whether you like it or not, when you have part of your income based on performance, you will perform. Humans always rise to the occasion. So you have that ability as an employee or entrepreneurship. It doesn't always have to be one or the other.
I love it. All right, you guys. Look, I just want to wrap on this. You really got to take a look at your preferences and what turns your crank and what excites you. And just remember, there's opportunities on both sides. Okay. There's valuable experiences on both sides. There's no one size fits all. You really got to figure out how your mindset works, what you value the most, and then really, really dig into that. And I hope on today's episode that, we uncovered a few things for our viewers.
I think some people will get some value from this for sure. And if you did, you guys, please drop a comment below, something that you realized, whether it helped you, made you think a little bit differently, or if it rubbed you the wrong way. If you think we're totally off the mark too, share that. We'd love to hear about it.
Awesome. All right, you guys. Thanks for joining Life by Design. We'll see you on the next one.